Yeah, so of course the South African government calling for an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. It is a rapidly developing situation. There have been, just in one day, some 70 Russian strikes on Ukrainian positions. I'm joined now by John Stremlau. He's an honorary professor of international relations at Wits University. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. You know, South Africa has now come out with quite a strong call for Russia to withdraw. The fact that South Africa is a member of BRICS, do you think that that will give Russia pause, that BRICS partners are saying, please, don't do this?
I don't know what's going to happen with the BRICS, to tell you the truth, because Putin is really on a tear right now. We used to say an ill wind blows no good. This is an ill cyclone, and it's going to bring tremendous suffering to the Ukrainian people who don't deserve it. And they're going to create a humanitarian crisis, I think, for Europe. And there is the question of what will Putin do next, because by the reports I've been seeing, he should have half of Ukraine under his control by the end of today.
The release from the South African government makes the point that South Africa as a nation was birthed through negotiation. And that's one of the reasons why we're so strong on ongoing negotiations. Do you think that there's any option at this point, bearing in mind there have been attempts at negotiations, I think, since November, for diplomacy to win out?
No, I don't at the moment. And that is a terrible thing to say, because I, too, believe very much, and I heard Dr. Pandor yesterday morning saying that she hoped that diplomacy would prevail. But I don't see any inclination on the part of Vladimir Putin. And it's not the Russian people, it's Vladimir Putin. And he is determined, it seems to me, to reestablish the old Cold War boundaries, or at least Russian influence. And his fiction that Ukraine is not a nation state, and therefore he could annex two republics, really gives Africans pause. I thought Martin Kimani, who was the Kenyan ambassador to the UN, was absolutely right when he said that, look, we are a continent that is full of territorial units created by imperialists, and yet we are trying to work within those frameworks, even though we have kith and kin on all sides of the borders, and trying to get ourselves integrated by voluntary, consensual, democratic means. And that's exactly what should be happening in Europe. And it's not right now. This is a throwback to the 19th century.
And, you know, some people are worried that it's going to take us to a point of a third world war, particularly as we can see that people are starting to nail their colours to the mast. Is it hyperbole to say that we could get to a point where we're going to see conflict, the globe drawn into this conflict?
Well, Sally, you know, I'm a congenital optimist, and in this case, I hope not. I really think that we are in a different world now. The international community and the UN has been very vocal and certainly the Secretary General has been, in the rules that Putin has broken. He will have to take stock of what the sanctions that Biden is about to announce right now as we're speaking in a press conference in the U.S. is doing, and the European Union and Stoltenberg at the NATO have already made plain that they're going to mobilize, and yet we don't know how far Putin is going to push. By getting Ukraine, he changes the geostrategic map of Europe profoundly, because Poland is a NATO member and it's got a large frontier with Ukraine, and Putin has already taken over Belarus. He's got a puppet in there, and the Belarusian people have no real say. They just had a fraudulent election in 2020. And so we don't know where the popular will is. We don't know what the civil resistance will be like in Ukraine, and we don't know whether the Russian people, who have been very quiet. It's been, you know, quite a contrast to the celebration that went on when they annexed, when Putin annexed Crimea in 2014. I don't think anyone is in a mood for an all-out war, and the opportunity costs for Africa are horrific. I mean, aside from the petroleum prices going up, what about climate change? What about health and vaccination and COVID and all the issues that are high on the African that get blown away?
Given that the stakes are really high, even for us here in Africa, do you think that South Africa should be considering something more? than that call for them to sanctions. And we've got a lot of investment in Russia.
Well, you know, the sanctions issue for South Africa is not what it is for the Europeans, and of course they have the control over so many flows of petroleum. They get 40% of their natural gas. Germany, Italy, Austria, and France, and 25% of their oil from Russia. You know, we have had some gains in gold prices, and some gains in commodity prices will go up. But on balance, it's a very unstable challenge to the international order, and South Africa has a real stake in promoting democracy, as it has done on the continent, and as it should be doing globally, at least rhetorically. And then we'll have to see whether or not there are collective actions that could be taken. But at the moment, we really have to watch this immediate security threat play out, because the Ukrainian people are suffering mightily tonight.
All right, thank you so much for chatting to us. John Stremlau, Honorary Professor of International Relations at Wits University. Speaking of university.